then we will go ahead and get started here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Just some housekeeping here before we get going. If you would please mute yourself when you're not asking questions, that would be helpful. It just cuts down on background noise so that we make sure everyone can hear the question and the answers. If you would do that, you're welcome to have your camera on or off. And when you do ask a question, you are also welcome to either ask it with just unmuting yourself or by putting it in the chat, and we will keep track of it there as well. This meeting is being recorded so that we can share it out with other folks. So it will be available on the website with the resources as well as sent via email to those folks who have signed up for it. So just know that that's happening as well. So if you don't want you yourself to be recorded, it would be best if you just put your question in the chat and we would answer it that way. Other than that, the kind of the format for today is that I will kind of give a little bit of an overview of the program and what we're looking for and some common questions. Justin Evertson will do the same. And then we will open it up to questions that you have, as well as some questions that have been sent in ahead of time. So today, the folks who will be speaking today, I'm Hannah Pinio. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. And then we have Justin Evertson, our Green Infrastructure Coordinator, who will be helping us out as well. Michelle DeRusha is our Events and Communications Coordinator. She's going to be writing down questions. So if there's things that we can't answer today, like we are unsure of, she will write that down as well as your name so that we can get back to you with those answers. Graham Herbst, our Community Forester, is also here. He may help answer some questions, as well as Kendall Wires, Community I'm going to get it wrong. Green infrastructure, community, all those words are in there somewhere. And I'm sorry, Kendall. Sustainable Communities Coordinator. Am I close? Yes, there we go. I got there. Kendall Wires, he's been helping with some of these grants as well. So we have a good group here who can hopefully get you the answer that you need. So just to start off with, I kind of want to give some points to think about when you're creating your application for this program. I'm not going to go through the RFP or the application itself because all of that is available on the website, and we can drop that in the chat if you haven't found it. All the questions that are on the application are there as well. So you can go through those ahead of time. You can look. You can also create an account and sign in to the application portal so that you can look at what the format is. It's free. Anybody can do it. So, don't feel like that's a barrier to be able to get in there and do that. But some of my points that I want to cover. First thing, to hedge any questions that I get about this, this grant is a federally funded program. It is funded through the Inflation Reduction Act, which I'm sure you've heard has been in the news and has been the subject of a few executive orders. So what I can tell you right now, and I want to preface it with saying the information that we are getting changes rapidly. But what I can tell you right now is that we have not received a stop work order from our federal partners. So we are continuing this program as if everything is running the way we expect it to run. So we are following our side of the agreement as we have a signed agreement with the federal government. And we will keep doing that until we are instructed to do otherwise. So that's what we're doing here today. If there is a change, so say we get a stop work order or something about how we can operate the grant changes, we will share it on that website and we will make sure to send an email. So if you are signed up for the email alerts, which you can also do on that same page that Michelle sent out, you'll get an email about it, but it will also be on the website. So you can see that as well. We will leave the application open. So as long as it's open, please apply, because we are able to look at those applications and help folks understand what this money could be used for. Okay, so please apply to the best of your ability, and we will do to the best of our ability what we can to keep you informed of what's happening. So that's what I know about funding right now. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is UEIs, so unique entity identifiers. All right. These were introduced a couple of years ago by the federal government. They replaced DUNS numbers. So you may have had a DUNS. Now you need a UEI. You can get a UEI at sam.gov. That's SAM.gov, and it stands for System for Award Management. That is where you get a UEI. It's a simple process for the most part, and also it is free. However, the system is rife with people trying to scam you and get money. So I want to make sure I tell all of you, you do not need to pay anyone for a UEI number. If you get an email asking for money to get your UEI, that is a scam. Do not click anything. Everything will be communicated through sam.gov. So if you don't have that UEI, go there and get the process started, because we can't award any funds unless you have that number in place. So make sure that you are on top of that. Also, check around, because if you are part of a larger, town, organization, something like that, you might not know that you already have a UEI. So ask your city clerk, ask your accountant, whoever might be the person who holds that information for your organization, before you try to go through the whole process of getting one. So make sure you keep track of that. Most towns, communities, cities already have one. So just know that. The person holding, or the organization holding the UEI, is the one who will have to sign all of the agreements. So if you are having a fiscal agent cover the fiscal side of your grant, it needs to be their UEI and their signature on the paperwork. They're the ones responsible for it. So keep that in mind as well. And my final note before I turn it over to Justin is about the types of projects that we're looking to fund. Okay. Many of you may have applied for grants from the statewide Arboretum before, and I want you to think bigger. Okay. Think bigger than what those programs were. Come from start from a place of abundance, not a place of scarcity. Okay. This is a lot of money. It can do a lot of things, and it can do things in a different way than we've done in the past. I mean, the biggest of that is tree removals. We've never funded that before. We're funding workforce development. So think about what that can look like in your community and what will mean the most. And start there and scale down if you need to. But I say go big and start with that big picture. You can apply for multiple grants for the same community, for the same organization. Also, think big on timeline. You should apply for as much time as you think could take for this project. The max is 3 years. And if you're sitting there thinking, I think we can do this in 1 year, but there's a chance maybe you might not, apply for at least 2 years, or just apply for the full 3 years, because finishing early is not a problem, but not finishing in time will be a big problem, because we are not giving any extensions, and it could mean that you don't get any of your money. So please, please apply for the longer timeline of what you estimate you need to complete this project. Okay. So overall, think big. That's my parting message there. So now I'm going to turn it over to Justin to give a couple of points before we started on questions.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. That was awesome. I would echo that. Think big, people. And so the big goal in the funding program was number one, removing, caring for, and planting trees to preserve the tree canopy in a community. So the community forest is what we're trying to modify here. For all the big benefits that the community forest provides, stormwater capture, shade, wind protection, beauty and comfort. And the sad reality is that it's declining, excuse me, in communities across Nebraska. So how do we arrest that? Now, we do have a funding mechanism here to help remove trees, hazard trees, problematic trees. EAB is ripping through Nebraska and causing a lot of death. But remember, the big goal here is to expand canopy. And so what I wrote down here, the big goals, expand our tree canopy in our communities, improve species diversity in our communities, and improve the safety and health of that canopy in our communities. You notice I haven't said yet remove a tree. Even those funds are allowed. We want to focus on the primary goal here to get canopy expanded for all those benefits we just talked about. But you're absolutely right. There are funds here to help take down trees that are hazardous and to deal with things like this EAB onslaught. But let's always start from that first basic notion that uh, all the ecosystem services that our community forest canopy used to provide is slowly eroding in this modern day as our canopies just go away over time and people are more reluctant to plant trees. So let's use this as a kick in the shorts to our neighbors and our communities to say, hey, we got to get after this a little stronger. And here's a great program to help maybe provide that incentive. That's about all I would offer right now up front. We're here to help you. So I'm on the call today. You know, Graham Herbst, Kendall Wires, others of us. We're here to help if you want to bounce things off of us, like uh, how many trees should we be planting? What should our stocking rate be? What kind of diversity should we shoot for? That kind of thing. We're here to give technical advice. But beyond that, yeah, just have fun with it, be creative, and as Hannah said, dream big. Do you want to add anything to that, Graham or Kendall?
I'll say others have applied for the NFS portion of the money. Keep in mind that the NSA portion has different allowable activities. So NSA portion that we're talking about today does not allow for inventory or a management plan, which is the big difference I'm aware of.
Right, good point.
No, I don't think I have anything particular to add. Just really excited for this opportunity for y'all to tap into, and feel free to reach out to any of us if there's specific questions that you have.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh, Michelle, did you have something?
Just wanted to let you know, there's a couple questions already in the chat.
Yes. So we're going to open it up to questions now. So I'm going to start with those questions in the chat and then we can go from there. So first up, can tree removals be done for purpose of clearing sites to make buildable lots for affordable housing if there is a project being proposed by a nonprofit? No. You may only remove trees that are dead, dying, hazardous, and ash trees. So it can't just be to make way for development. Now, if those trees are dead, dying, hazardous, then possibly. But remember, they all have to be replaced 1-to-1 in the same area. So just keep that in mind when you're proposing. Is the funding upfront for a project or as a reimbursement? This is a reimbursement-based grant. So you will have to provide proof of payment for all expenditures throughout the grant. Knowing that this is a longer timeline and a bigger funding, we are not going to do like what we typically do with NSA grants, where you have to get reimbursed at the end. So we will be able to offer periodic reimbursements throughout the project timeline. And we will share that with all awardees so they know when they can submit those after they receive the award. Can trees be used for stormwater management on individual residential properties during construction, as well as going back and providing trees for storm management under a plan? Properties owned by residents as well as nonprofit. We definitely welcome using trees for green infrastructure projects, especially stormwater management. I'm not sure if I'm completely understanding. I mean, you need to be careful with trees during construction and knowing if they will be able to survive said construction. And trees planted on private properties are allowed, but there's some specifics around that. So we want them to be in right of ways and public spaces unless there was a tree, like say, removed in the backyard as a hazardous tree, then we could allow a tree to be planted in a backyard. But there's a lot of specifics around that. So if you have more specific questions, I would say that might be a good one to reach out to one of us so we can talk through your specific what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, Hannah, is to clarify that we're not trying to plant trees on private property, right, in and of itself, just to replace trees that may have had to come out.
Right. Yes. Could this grant be used for installing a drip system to water trees around a community walking trail? I would say yes if you are also planting trees. I don't think we would fund just a drip system. It would have to be part of a total project. Okay, here's a loaded question that I will let Justin, Graham, and Kendall answer. Any advice to help convince community leaders to plant trees in a downtown area?
Well, that's a tough one, but yeah, just the there's a lot of web resources that talk about the value of trees in urban environments. So seek those out. And I'm sure there's some Michelle could point you to on the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum resource link. And that'll be good talking points. And then I'm sure any of us here would be happy to have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, and those kind of conversations, I'm always looking to, what are the motivations that are effective with the person I'm talking to? Is it an environmental approach? Is it an economic one? Is it a social one? Uh, is it a spiritual one? Sometimes people feel like these projects are worthy because it's, fostering, being a good steward of creation or what have you. So hard to answer without knowing which individual I'm talking to, but we're all trying to think about it from a number of different perspectives depending on the audience that we're working with. If you have any follow-up on that, we could talk more about it, more specifics.
Yeah, one thing Denise might be driving at there is you're never a prophet in your own hometown, right? So you've got, if you can get somebody to carry that prophet knowledge for you, like a local forester or one of us, we're happy to do it, Denise.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't know how many times I go into a community and say the exact same thing that people on the tree board or whatever have been saying, and they're like, "Oh, wonderful."
Yeah.
It's like they just needed to hear it from someone else, I guess.
All right. Going back down the list, we are a volunteer project and don't have a UEI number. Will we still need one? Yes. I cannot give anyone money without a UEI number. A way to get about that is to partner with an organization. So if there's a nonprofit or a community foundation or somebody in your area that would be willing to serve as your fiscal sponsor, that is something to think about. And I know that's for some, that's a weird thing to think about, but fiscal sponsorships is stuff that happens across grant communities all the time. So if you just use those words with whoever you want to approach about this, that will be something that they could likely help you with. Just be ready to partner with them on that project. And of course, there will be compromises there because they will be responsible for the reporting and all of that good stuff. But like I said, I can't give anybody any type of award without a UEI number. So make sure you have someone or your organization has that in place. Is this funding applicable to organizations in rural areas as well? Yes. We want to plant trees wherever community trees are needed. So there is a map, once again, available on that webpage that was sent out or in the chat earlier. Your program or project does have to take place within a shaded area on that map. So make sure to go check the map before you apply and, put a lot of time into this, because if your project is not within an eligible area in that eligibility map, then we likely can't fund it. There's a little bit of fudge, but not really much. So make sure you check that and read through all the guidance in the RFP and the application. But it's the whole map of the state. So there's a lot of available land there where we can do projects, okay? And also, can it be used to plant trees as part of a fruit orchard or food forest initiative? This is a yes, but I would say. So, yes, as long as it's part of a community forestry initiative. So is it at a park where these trees are also providing other benefits, things like that. So that may be another one where you want to maybe run it by us, your specific project before you get too far into it, so we can give you a little bit of feedback on that one, because that could be a yes, but
Yeah, that's a good question,
uh,
Hannah. Just to say, the benefit of the community forest can happen on multiple levels, and for too long we've put it primarily on aesthetics and maybe summer comfort. But we really need to start thinking about usability of trees and the value beyond just aesthetics. So we would say weave into any project trees that can have a bigger use down the road. You probably don't want walnuts planted over your streets, but uh, things like pecans and walnuts and stuff like that in a park make a lot of sense with a food forest idea that the community might benefit from if it's part of a bigger plan.
yes. And I want to go back to Justin's point that we are not trying to plant a bunch of trees on private property. So any type of orchard would need to be like a community food forest that's accessible and open. Is the UEI holder the same as project sponsor? Yes, that would be right. So in the application, we have two different points of contact that you can provide. The project sponsor is the organization or whoever who can sign the paperwork, provide the UEI, all that good stuff. And then we provide another area for you to put in the main point of contact. So that might be the person actually on the ground doing the work or who needs to know of updates about the grant, but maybe isn't the signing authority. And those can be the same person. For some of you, it might be, and for some of you, it might be different. And once we get into the grant, like if you are awarded and we need to have multiple, 5 people who need to be aware of what's happening, we can do that too. Okay. Is the eligible disadvantaged communities set in stone, or is it a changing map? Some communities are half in the green. Yes. So the eligible disadvantaged communities are, I wouldn't say set in stone, but they're set for now. This is something that is part of the federal regulations that could change. So this is a place where I say, use the information that is available right now, knowing that it might change in the future. However, it probably won't be retroactive from best I can tell, right? So it might be that areas open up or are not included for future applications, but that likely wouldn't apply if you have a signed agreement with us. So work off the information that is there right now. And if there are changes or updates, we will let you know. And some communities are half green and half not. And that's because the map is made up of census tracts. So every 10 years, somebody knocks on your door or you get a letter asking you to complete the census, right? That's what these are based on. So that's why they're split weird. And that just is the way it is. I don't set the census tracks, so I can't help with that. Sorry. Um, is funding allowed for tree treatments like EAB treatments? We'd like to remove some ash trees, but save a few good ones. No, I don't. I would say no. But
That's a good question, Noah Day.
yeah.
Yeah, so we would love to support you on that. There is a section in there to pay for education and training and also equipment or supplies, we should say. So maybe if you get yourself set up to treat your own trees, there might be some eligible expenses in there, but run that by us first, maybe.
Yep. Next question. Is it a 1-for-1 replant ratio or a 2-to-1 for trees removed? We want at least for every tree removed for one tree to be replanted so that way we're not declining the canopy. Okay. Of course, more trees planted. It's always better in our view. So the requirement is 1-to-1. More is better. As long as they're good location and good trees, right? If an application is not funded via the first review, will the application roll over to the next review cycle or should we reapply? So this is a great question. Thank you. If it's not funded, and what we will do is re-release that application back to you with comments so that you can make any changes that you want to make to it and reapply. So we won't just automatically roll it over, especially because sometimes, you submit the application, it doesn't get funded, and you have to move on. We all understand how that is. So we want to give you the option to reapply, but you won't have to start from scratch. So you can make those little adjustments, changes. You will have to change your timeline, of course, because it'll be a different time frame. And then you can reapply by the next time. The other thing I want to say about that is there's no extra points for applying early. Okay. So just apply within the time period where you want to, but whether you apply the first day that time period starts or the last day, doesn't matter. Make sure it's a good application no matter when you apply. If funds were applied for to do a community neighborhood tree inventory and management plan for a municipality, does the work of tree planting removal need to happen within the 3-year time frame, or can the funds just fund the work of the plan? The NSA funding is not we cannot fund that inventory or management plan. So that is not something that we are funding. We would fund the tree planting and removal if you already have a plan, or if you can find a different source for that plan, then we could fund the work to be done.
We would encourage that inventory and planning. So if this can be a kick in the shin or a jump start to get that going, let it be. So maybe you bit off planting 10 trees and took down 4 or 5, but in the meantime, maybe we helped connect you to somebody who could help you do an inventory and a plan.
Yeah, and we do have some limited inventory assistance that we can offer. It's very dependent on how big a community that you have and how many volunteers you have that can assist with data collection. So if it's an inventory that can be done on a more volunteer basis, we can assist with training for that. But larger communities, of course, it's better to have a contractor to come in and get that done quickly. So.
Okay, next question is how about the cost to remove sections of sidewalk to plant downtown trees? Yes, that we can fund. So if you would like to fix your bump outs or things like that so that you can plant trees correctly in downtown areas, we can fund the reasonable removal of that cement, concrete, whatever it is, all that good stuff. Could this grant be used for the creation or establishment of a city nursery to raise trees to be planted on public property? However, the nursery location isn't within the designated eligible area on the map, and would this be considered for funding? Thank you. You sent this question early, and I have been thinking about it, but I don't know if I have a specific answer yet. So I'm going to answer that one in the email that you sent, because that's a tricky one. Because I would say, yes, this funding can be used to establish a city nursery. If it's not in a designated area, that gets more trickier, because the trees would need to be planted in the designated area. But if you're not planting the trees until 5 years later, depending on the size that you do, that gets pretty hard for us to enforce. So that's something that I have to chat with the team and talk through. So I will get back to you via email. Okay. Ooh, I think I made it through all the ones in the chat so far. Does anybody see any that we missed?
Can I ask a question? Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm with Friends of Riverview Park in Nebraska City, and we have a UEI number, but we don't have like a big budget. If I were able to structure our contracts with the contractors that they were reimbursed after completion and we're able to wait for funding, can we do that, or would we have to go through the city of Nebraska City for payment?
Yeah, so we have to see proof that you paid them already.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say then you'll want to go through the city.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
There were a couple more questions on there, like if a drip system is okay, what about a larger distribution system? And I think we've always said to get water to a place where it's needed is good in reason, but not if you're turning that into a lawn irrigation system. But we could pay for a distribution line, I assume, right, Hannah, if it's within reason.
Yeah, once again, that's going to be a little bit based on the project, because also remember we can't fund equipment. Okay, so there's that definition, that federal definition of what's equipment and what's a supply. So if the pieces to make a piece of equipment total $5,000 or more, no, $5,001 or more, we can't pay for that. But if it's under that and it's not equipment, then we can pay for it. It gets tricky there, right? And like Justin said, what's it being used for? Is it watering trees or not?
Noah asks about tree pruning, and yes, this can be used for hazardous tree pruning on public property. Noah, it just needs to be supervised or evaluated by a ISA or NAA certified arborist. There are some exceptions there if you don't have those in your community that we can talk about on an individual basis. But we do want this work done by and or supervised by high quality people in this regard. So let's just put it at that.
And I want to point out that Graham put some resources in the chat about where to find arborists if you need someone to be involved. So look there so that you can find a qualified arborist for your projects.
Yeah, you can either go through the Nebraska Arborist Association or the International Society of Arboriculture. Both of those links, you can plug in a zip code or a community in the case of Nebraska Arborist Association, and you'll find arborists that have specified that they work in your area.
Can low quality weed trees be removed, Richard? There's a pretty good allowance for site preparation. And so maybe I'll just say you can be a little creative with that. It can take a lot of efforts to get a site ready for planting. So if you have bad trees in the way, as long as it's not a huge removal effort, I don't see a problem there.
All right. And Chris, I might need you to provide a little bit more background on this, but are there any stipulations for planting trees in disadvantaged areas where trees have already been removed? So are you asking technical stipulations, or can you only plant trees where trees have been removed? I would say as long as it's a qualified area and you want to plant trees and you have the authority to plant trees on those properties, then go for it. It doesn't have to be because a tree was removed. It could be new properties, new building, things like that. So if you have more details to give, let me know.
Do you see Richard's question about low quality weed trees? I didn't.
Yeah, Justin answered
Oh,
that one.
sorry. I was responding to someone else. I cannot
No.
multitask.
I
As
get
long as it's not hackberries,
it.
right,
Take out
Hannah?
all the hackberries.
No, preserve all
No.
the hackberries, Hannah said. This is a hackberry preservation grant.
There you go. Regarding site prep, is a cornfield to be used an issue due to herbicides previously used? So you're taking a cornfield and turning it into trees? That's a project I have never heard of. Sounds fun.
There could be issues with
Um,
that. Maybe not residual herbicide as much as residual soil compaction and other problems, but that's a very fair concern for the first year or two.
And there's definitely concern about future herbicide exposure to the rest of the cropland that's not converted. So you're going to be right next to other cropland, I would assume. And so drift will be a concern there.
I can't wait to read that application. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything against cornfields, but this is interesting. All right. Other questions we can answer for folks? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
That cornfield thing, I might just add, start with tough trees and get a good basis established, and then down the road maybe try things that are a little more temperamental. But I'll bet you'll have good luck with uh we don't want to be too funny about it, but hackberry, elm, bur oak, Kentucky coffee tree, gray dogwood. I think all those things would do well in a farm field to tree row conversion.
Mhm. Okay, Noah asked, can a community be partially reimbursed every year if you have a 3-year project? Yes. Yep. We will be working with the grantees to create a schedule of when they might need reimbursed. Okay, Dr. Sutton, noted. I'll see what I can do about the character limit in the timeline. I'm back in class.
Yeah. Yeah. Your assignment.
Yes. You see that character increase? No, it's just for you. Other questions? All right. If we have questions, who do we reach out to before we go through the grant writing process? Me. I can help with things. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm doing my best to respond in a timely manner. And if I can't answer it, I'm trying to get it to other folks who can help answer your question as well. And the more you send questions, I'm not trying to get a flood of emails, but when you send us questions, we update the frequently asked questions document as well so that other people can see it. So check that frequently asked document. We will, on the button title, maybe mark it updated when we put new ones up so that way you know if it has changed since the last time you saw it. Let's see. Just a follow up to the last answer. Can we propose phases over 3 years? Yes. But what I recommend is don't plan to apply for 3 1-year grants. Apply for 1 3-year grant that does the phases of work split out by year in your timeline. This grant will be open until all funding has been allocated. We don't know how long that'll take. So if you plan to come back in 2027 and apply for a grant, there may be no money left. So make sure that if you are trying to do a 3-year phase, you apply for 1 3-year grant, not 3 1-year grants. Let's see. There was another one. Can I submit 2 grant apps from 2 completely different organizations? You can. Yes, you definitely can. I may have to work with you on that because that can get a little tricky as to which organization your email address is associated with in the application portal. So if you run into issues, technical issues, just let me know and I can make some adjustments on the back side to make sure that you can apply for 2 different organizations. Grant writing machine. All right. Any other questions? We have 15 minutes scheduled left. So. Okay. Then Graham, Kendall, Justin, Michelle, any final comments?
None from me. Go forth and create creative projects. Let's get some trees planted in the ground, people, especially trees that impact our streets and public spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Jane's follow-up question. We can propose phases over 3 years.
Yep.
Okay. I don't see anything we missed.
There's been a couple new ones.
Oh,
So
okay.
would a college campus qualify? Yes, and so if your campus is open, because these can't be like gated communities or anything like that. So if it meets the MAP eligibility and your campus is open, then yes, it would qualify. And then revisiting treatment of ash, is it either treat or remove? What you do with your ash trees is up to you. But for this grant, we are funding removals. Does that make sense, Justin, Graham?
Yeah, that's a real conundrum because we don't want to get in the business of treating ash trees, and there's a whole, and you know that, Richard, as good as anybody, some trees should be preserved. And we also don't want to take down ash trees that we thought might have a 30-year life. For example, you may be in Central City and not have EAB present yet. You could still get 10 more years out of your ash trees, but Kearney, it's running rampant. So those are going to be case by case issues. So.
For the JJ, for the issue regarding herbicides, don't reach out to me. I would say that's probably a Justin. Justin, would you be a good, or do you think somebody else?
Yeah, what they're going to tell you is take a soil sample, contact your local extension office. They'll have you take a soil sample if you think there's something in the soil to be concerned with.
Yes.
And they'll advise you on how to send that for testing.
Good old local extension. I love it.
Yeah.
They're
I
a
think the
great
best thing you could
resource.
think about there, JJ, is if you're planting in an old cornfield, maybe not worry too much about herbicides, but how you would go forward to make sure there's organic matter in with your trees so you're not turning it from a cornfield into a golf course with a few trees plunked in the edges of it. Do what you can for the health of the trees, which means mulching, organic matter, compost, and let it season out over time. It won't be wonderful the first year or two, but it'll get better over time. Add more things as you go along.
Lots of mulch. Yep.
Yeah, good use for
Great.
mountains of EAB related ash mulch.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we haven't touched on that at all, which is we would like to see in your projects how you're keeping trees that are removed from hitting landfills. So if you have a way to utilize your removed trees, please put that in your application, whether that's mulching, chipping, sending it to your local school so that they can mill it, whatever that might be.
Yes.
What documentation would need to be submitted for labor reimbursement? That depends on how you do the labor. So if you are using like your organizations or towns personnel, then we need those personnel payment records. So that can be timesheets, it can be payroll records, those types of things. If you are contracting it out, then we just need the paid contract agreements, right? So they'll usually invoice you with that info. You pay it, and then we need that documentation. All right, other questions? You guys were easy on us this time around.
Yeah, nice.
All right, then we will close out a bit early. Everyone gets about 10 minutes back in their day. Like I said, this will be up on the website. It will be emailed to everybody. So if you have questions throughout, please reach out to any of us. You can send it to me and I can outsource it to other folks who might need to answer. And make sure to check back on that website because the frequently asked questions will be updated throughout the grant lifetime as well. So I am excited to read all of your applications and I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks, everybody.